Good afternoon and welcome to this informational video on some topics I'll be discussing in regards to data encryption and securing user accounts in a network. Some of the questions I'll be answering are: what is encryption? What is data compression? What does it mean to secure a user account? How can we secure a user account? And what's the difference between role-based access control and rights and permissions? So we'll go ahead and just start with the first question here on what is encryption? So encryption is the system or method in which we secure our data in a non-readable format to protect it from unauthorized access. In order for someone to read that data, they would need to have an authorization as well as a decryption key. You can think of a decryption key as like a complicated special password made up of secret characters and numbers that only the creator of that key possesses. Encryption keys can be either symmetric or asymmetric, where the difference is whether you have one key to encrypt and decrypt, or if you have a pair of keys for encrypting and decrypting. A key pair would be more secure in that you cannot use the same key for both the encryption and decryption. When it comes to encryption types, we have both data level and drive level encryption. The main difference between these lies in whether you want to encrypt specific files and folders versus encrypting a complete drive. With data level encryption, we use EFS or encrypting file system, where the user owner has full control of the file and the decryption key for anyone who needs or wants access. With the drive level encryption, we protect the entire drive, so only authorized personnel can have access based on the recovery or decryption key. For this, you can use something like BitLocker or BitLocker to go, which is differentiated by whether you have a fixed or removable drive, BitLocker to go being for a removable drive option. You do have the option for protecting your OS with BitLocker, but that does require a specialized hardware chip on the motherboard itself, which is called a TPM or a trusted platform module. Um, OS encryption without BitLocker is possible, but not recommended due to the fact that it leaves the encryption key vulnerable to theft or compromised by physical attacks. There are a variety of encryption protocols used in the industry, which are compatible with various applications and services. I won't completely cover all of the encryption types, but they basically fall into two categories of whether it's a protocol for secure communication or a protocol for authentication. Some common encryption protocols are like SSL, which is for secure web access, SSH, which is establishing secure remote connectivity, IPsec for securing local communication or remote access to a server like with VPN. And then you have RSA, which is securing remote access on resources. As mentioned before, we have the EFS for encrypting file systems, the WPA 2 or 3 for securing wireless networks, AES, which encrypts our data and services. There are several other protocols, but I'll go ahead and end it at that for these more common types that you see. Since we are on the topic of encryption, I will also mention that encryption typically only, or with encryption, typically only the creator of the file has or can grant access to that resource, but there is the possibility of an administrator to be able to open that encrypted file. Now, by default, like I mentioned, no one has access other than the creator, but an administrator can make themselves a DRA, which is a data recovery agent. This is essentially a feature that allows the admin to view the contents of an encrypted file of a user without having any knowledge of the admin's capabilities to read that said file. So once an administrator becomes a DRA, they have access to any encrypted files that are created in the network. But one thing to note about that is that the admin must be the DRA prior to users encrypting a file. If, say, there's a file that was encrypted prior to the administrator becoming the DRA, then they won't have access unless the original user were to open and close that encrypted file, which would create a new timestamp. And in that case, then the admin would have access following the creation of the encryption. Moving on to the second question of what is data compression? Data compression is the process of reducing the number of bits required to represent data, which is achieved by using algorithms to identify and eliminate redundancy or less important information. The main goal is to save storage space and speed up data transmission over networks. There are two primary methods: lossless compression, which preserves the original data perfectly, and lossless compression, which removes some data to achieve a smaller file size, but with potential quality loss. Moving on to the third question, what does it mean to secure a user account? When we talk about securing a user account, it is essentially the process of ensuring the network remains safe and vulnerabilities are mitigated or as limited as possible so as to ensure that cyber criminals do not have access or will not be able to get access to our sensitive data and resources. So we set rules and regulations to help us secure our accounts and network. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here, and just for the sake of keeping it a little bit shorter on time, and we'll go into the next following questions, starting with how we can secure a user account.